Hey everyone, hopefully you'll had a great holidays and there are more holidays to come for the rest of this year. Today I want to talk about income streams. So we see a whole bunch of videos all over the place about influencers, financial influencers in particular, with like 20 different income streams. Okay, maybe that's exaggerating, but maybe something like, 8 income streams, 9 income streams. And that seems abnormal, right? Most folks aren't going to have that many income streams. I just want to paint a more realistic picture for what income streams might look like for you. And hopefully, my income streams are very average, for better or worse. A huge topic in this area is the idea of passive income. Now, we can have the whole debate about is income truly passive or not if you're putting in work anyway, or does it depend on the level of work you put in? But that's a different topic. I want to talk about the fact that so many of these income streams from these other folks are passive, right? In the sense that, they're not doing as much work. It's not a full-time job for them. Even for incomes that I consider passive, they really make up a very small portion of all of my income. So it's really thinking about, hey, what's realistic, right? You could probably guess what makes up most of my income before I even jump into it. But before I dive in, the biggest call out here is that this is really for transparency. Right? I just want to show all of you, hey, my income streams are normal. Yours can be too. It's fine. Right? We're all working towards making more money and doing less time on the job, right? Is a particular goal. But I would say I'm not writing this to brag about my income streams. There's nothing really to brag about. It's mainly going to be percentages. Right? For full transparency, I just want everyone to get a good idea about what is realistic. Right, so the biggest one is my full-time job. That makes up roughly the 98.69% of my income. Just my full-time job, right? So this is a job that I work 40 plus hours on every week. So this portion of the income is going to include, your salary, any RSUs, bonuses, 401k matches, all the benefits, right? All of that stuff I would include as a part of this. And it's so important to remember that your income is just not your base salary, right? There's so much more to it. And it would, be in your best interest to calculate that true salary, right? To really understand, hey, but I would say that 98% is a rough number, a rough estimate, but even if it goes up or down a single percent, it's not a huge deal because of how large of my income it makes up. I would go as far as to say that this is pretty normal. I think most folks, their income is going to be just their full-time job, right, or their part-time job, whatever it may be. And honestly, I would love for that not to be the case. Most folks would love for that not to be the case because, your full-time job, that's where you spend most of your time. And if there could be an other, side hustle or other business or passive investment that's making a huge chunk of your income, the implication is that you're working less. Not always true, but that's an implication. Also, to be clear, this is my full-time job and I only have one of those. I know some folks have two jobs, two full-time jobs where they're somehow managing and juggling two or more full-time jobs at a single time. But that's not me. I just have a single job that I'm entirely focused on. I also don't think that this is going to change anytime soon. Maybe if my side hustle takes off, but for the most part, it will be, there'll be a lot of work to be done on that part before it really makes up the majority of my income. And the next one here is interest, particularly interest from my savings account, which makes up 0.12% of my income. I know 0.12%. Why am I mentioning it? It's so small. Well, considering that the majority of my income is 98% from my full-time job, there's going to be a lot smaller ones out there. This is something that a lot of folks have access to, right? Just interest from a savings account. Anyone can get interest. Just open up a savings account and there you go. I definitely recommend having a high yield savings account because you'll get more interest that way. Interest does vary over the year, right? This year alone has varied greatly due to increasing interest rates from the Federal Reserve, right? So there's going to be various movement there and it's very hard for it to be consistent. Basically, I just took all the interest that I made this year from savings accounts and then compared it to the income I've made thus far this year. Not much to say on this one. Just make sure that, hey, if you're going to have savings, make sure it's in a high yield savings account, and that's the gist of it. Next up is going to be dividends from my investments, especially stock investments. This roughly makes up 0.72% of my income. A little bit larger than interest from a savings account, but also not huge. Definitely not a high dividend investor. There are a lot of folks who basically select stocks and select investments that are high dividend yields that are consistent. That's not my case. I am entirely a mutual fund index fund investor, and those generally aren't super high dividends. They're not bad, but they're not crazy high. It's also important to say that most of my dividends are reinvested. My dividends don't just sit in my account, they're reinvested directly into the index fund that I'm currently investing with, just because that's the best way to maximize my wealth generation. If I were to leave it in my investment account, I probably wouldn't remember to invest that. It would just sit there and it wouldn't make any gains. So it's important to reinvest your dividends, especially if you aren't logging into your account every so often to manually invest those dividends. The next one's interesting. The next one's actually a new one that I haven't had in the previous years, but did pop up this year, and it's for side hustles. And in the context of my side hustles, it was really just me doing corporate financial literacy workshops, and this roughly makes up 0.47% of my income, even less than the dividend portion of it. It's still something, right? I'll take any money I can get from these side hustles. I'm really hoping to grow to someday. Right now it's a little small, and it takes up a small part of my time, but I would love to do more corporate workshops. Maybe someday I'll replace my full-time job, who knows? It's a real passion for me to teach financial literacy, especially if I get paid for it. That's awesome. This is not to say that I don't teach for free. So if you have a nonprofit or you know of an education system or schools or colleges that really would like someone to come in and teach folks about financial literacy, I'm all for it. Shoot me an email, leave a comment, reach out to me, and I'm happy to organize it, especially if it's over Zoom, right? It's just so easy to give those workshops nowadays. And I still continue to give free workshops to alumni from my school. So there's so many ways to give back. I just think it's so important to give back, right? More than 95% of my workshops are free, and why not, right? Of course, if you give me money, I'll take it, right? If not, that's cool too. Not a big deal. Now, my final income stream that I just want to mention, just because someone's going to ask me about it, is money from sponsorships or just YouTube ad revenue. It's 0%. I'm not getting paid. I don't even qualify for it right now based on where I'm at. And even if I did qualify, I'm not sure if I would turn it on or go for a sponsorship. It really depends on what the sponsorship is. Right now, a lot of folks are coming under fire, especially financial education influencers are running into issues where basically they're recommending financial products, and they might not be licensed to do so. Hopefully this number will change someday. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. Either way, it's fine. If this becomes popular, then I will make some money off of it. If it doesn't, that's cool too. Sponsorships is an important aspect of this because most folks make money from sponsorships. But generally speaking, I don't want to recommend anything that I don't personally use or that I feel is risky, right? I don't want to recommend any investment products because there's no guarantee of return, right? So it would be a disservice to tell folks to invest when it might not be in their best financial interests. It's definitely in my financial interest, especially if I'm getting sponsored, right? So I'm definitely open to sponsorships. It just depends on what that is. If you have an idea, send them my way, and I'm happy to talk more. So you're free to interpret these income streams and this transparency video however you wish. I just think it's important to talk about the fact that, hey, I'm not generating 8-9 income streams. It's very average, very normal. The most of my money is coming from a full-time job. I have a small side hustle here and there that's making a very small percentage. And to be clear, I'm not bragging. There's not much to brag about from income streams, but maybe someday there will be. Hopefully, all of you will see now that you don't really need 10 income streams to be financially successful. You don't need everything to be generating income or equity and cash. Just do your best and you should be fine, right? As long as you follow some good rule of thumbs for financial literacy, you'll steadily make more money, and as long as you invest it, you'll be okay. All right, thanks for chatting, everyone. And I hope everyone has 10 income streams someday. Or if you're like me, that's cool too. All right, I'll see you all in the next one.